I have two column charts here in Power BI. The one on the left is the default one, and the one on the right is what I call the ultimate column chart in Power BI. In this video, let's understand the process of taking something that is plain and boring and turn that into something that actually communicates valuable insights and decision points for the business users. Let's go into the details now. Let me briefly explain what our data is. This is a really simple one table data that has by month and app how many downloads we are having. I also have some other details here. For example, I know how many uninstalls, 5-star ratings, 1-star ratings, and total ratings I have if I want to do some additional analysis. For our purpose here, we are going to focus on the downloads aspect for now. I'll add a new page, and to create a column chart, you can use the stacked column chart or the bar chart options. The techniques apply for both of these. I'm just going to use a column chart. Before you even make a single chart, I highly suggest you to turn on the on object interaction feature of Power BI. This is a new feature that they have added to Power BI that lets you quickly format and customize the charts by double clicking on them. To do this, you can click on this settings icon at the bottom, or you can go into File, Options and Settings and Options. Once you go there, navigate to Preview Features. Once you're here, locate the On Object Interaction option and enable that. You will need to restart Power BI for this to kick in. So let's add the column chart, and here I want to see the apps and my downloads. Now normally you just add app and select the downloads column. Now instead of doing a direct chart on an existing column like this, always create measures because that will help us do more things with Power BI. So I have created a measure called total downloads, which is nothing but the sum of the downloads column of my data. So let's add that. This is how the default chart looks like. Now our job is to turn this into the ultimate column chart. Let's take a closer look at the ultimate chart and understand what are the key ingredients here. There are three main things here. The first one is the title, the second one is the subtitle, and the third one is the highlighting of the most downloaded app. Here the story that we want to tell is this is the app that is getting most downloads, and we want to bring forth and celebrate that in our visual. Alternatively, you can communicate other stories from here as well. So for example, you can focus on something like Temple Bun, which could be one of the recent apps that we launched, hence it has lower downloads, or it is one of the least popular ones. So maybe we can focus on that and talk about why this is getting lower downloads. It all depends on what the intention and purpose of this communication that you're doing is. In our case, we are going to focus on this one here. So the title, subtitle, and the highlighting are all adjusted for that. So to do these three things, we need to calculate a few more things. We need to figure out what goes into the title and what goes into the subtitle. You could manually type this information, but remember Power BI is interactive. So if I were to update my data or have a slicer or some other interaction, when I click on that, this narrative should change. For example, I'm going to add a slicer here on our month. And right now for all the data, Sugar Rush is our most downloaded app. But if I adjust it, you can see that now the narrative has changed. It says Crushed by Candice is our most downloaded app in the current context of July 2024 or June, July 2024, those dates. And even the subtitle has changed. It tells me what is the actual downloads for that, and the highlighting, everything works beautifully. So to get this, we need to do some calculations. Let's go through and build these calculations one at a time. For example, given this, I want to know what is the most downloads that we had. That means for all of these apps, we just want to calculate individually what are their downloads and find the maximum among that. This kind of an operation is called iteration. It is where you take a bunch of items, in this case these apps, we iterate through them, go one at a time, calculate something that could be total downloads or total 5-star ratings or anything like that, and then find the maximum of that. For this, we can use the max x function. Any function that has the letter x at the end of it SumX, MaxX, CountX, etc. Those are the iterator functions because they do the same operation and then tell you what is the outcome of the maximum of all of those operations. So in this case, we want to calculate individually what is the download for each app and then find the maximum of that. Let's write this measure. I have already written this. So here is the measure. MaxX of all apps, what is the total download? The all here is just going to give me a listing of all the individual apps that we have in our data. And then this is going to calculate all the download values for that. And then MaxX will tell you what is the maximum. In case you're not really sure how these things work, feel free to use the DAX query view option here and test some of this logic. So for example, if you're not really sure how the all works, you could say all. You need to always write evaluate first and then all, open bracket, app like that. Let's see this. This is gonna just give you a distinct list of all the apps that we have in our data. Alternatively, if you do have a dimension table with the app information, you could also use that. So this most downloads tells you what is the most number of downloads any app had. For example, if I see this in a card, we'll see that as 53K. You can see that here Sugar Rush has 53K and that's the number that shows. Irrespective of which app I select, this number doesn't change because here we are using all, which kind of ignores the effects of filtering on that particular column and always tells you the 6 apps names directly. The next thing that we want to calculate is the name of the app. We know that 53K is the most downloads that we had, but what is the name? To get the name, we can use the top n function. What top n does is it will return the top n items. Here we just want the first item, but you could use this for top 5 or top 10 or bottom 5 or bottom 10 like that. So we can use top n and then we can ask among all of these apps, which is the topmost one when I'm looking at the downloads in descending order. So let's take a look at that measure. So here it is, most downloaded app, top n 1. So I want the highest value. By starting with all apps and calculating total downloads for all of them, arrange them in the descending order and then give me the number 1 value. So top n here, this all is going to return a single column table of all the apps, and then top n will just filter this down to the topmost one based on the total number of downloads in descending order, and that's the name. So it will come up as Sugar Rush. Let's take a look at this. If I add a card, you can see that it says Sugar Rush. We can select a different app here. It doesn't matter because here we are using all, it always comes back as Sugar Rush. So now we have all the ingredients to construct both title and subtitle. The title would be Sugar Rush is our most downloaded app. Subtitle is it has 53K or 19% of all the downloads. So let's calculate the titles. I have already written those measures for you, but I'm just going to construct them from scratch now. So right click new measure, and then with this one, we'll call it as chart title V1. The title should be Sugar Rush is our most downloaded app, but Sugar Rush is returned by the most downloaded app measure. Most downloaded app ampersand is our most downloaded app. Let's plug this title into this chart. By default, it would say something like total downloads by app. So select this chart, go to the title option in format area, and you can see that right next to the title, here we have got FX button. This is what we can use to plug in any other measure or logic that we have built to generate the title on the fly. This feature is called conditional formatting. I'm going to click on this FX and it will say the field value. The field value would be chart title V1. So here my title is now coming up. Let's add the subtitle as well. If you go back to the title area here, you will see that there is a subtitle option. Right now it is turned off. Let's enable that. But before that, we do need to construct the subtitle. So right click, new measure, chart subtitle V1. And here we are going to calculate a variable called prop, which is the proportion of the Sugar Rush's downloads as against all downloads. And this is nothing but a divide, open bracket, most downloads with total downloads. Now, when I refer to total downloads like this, outside the context of any individual app, I'll get the overall number of downloads. Once that proportion is calculated, we'll return a statement that says it has ampersand, and then we want to take the proportion and convert that into a percentage representation. Otherwise, it will be something like 0.19. So here we can use the format function, format of proportion into 0%. That will basically say it has 19%. Ampersand of all downloads. Now, instead of just saying 19%, I would also like to print the number as well, because then we can both see per proportion and per number. So next to this, I'll put a hyphen and then close these double quotes, and in the middle, let's add the most downloads. Let's see this subtitle as well. So here we go to the subtitle, enable the subtitle, and click on the FX button next to the subtitle. And for this, we'll say the subtitle V1. It has 19% or 53428 of all downloads. Now you can see that there are a couple of problems with this. One, there is no space between the number and the next sentence part of the sentence off. So we would like to add a space there. The second is, instead of saying 53428, which is too descriptive, we may want to round it up and show it in thousands, like 54K or 53.4K. So let's do that. Let's go back here, and instead of using most downloads directly, we'll say format this, comma, in the format of hash, comma, .0K. That's the special format code for turning that number into thousands with 1 decimal points and adding the K at the end. I'm just going to lowercase that, and we added the space here as well. If you're wondering how I know all of these things, these are the same format codes that we use in Excel as well. They're called custom number formats. It is mostly similar. So if you have worked with Excel, or if you know a colleague who has done this kind of stuff, you can use that idea. Otherwise, it's not that hard to figure out. I've got some articles on my website. I'll put a link to that here. Check it out. All right, let's click this. And now let's read this. It has 19%, 53.4K of all downloads. Perfect. Now our title is ready. Our subtitle is ready. Let's tidy up this chart, and let's also figure out how to highlight this particular column. Now you can see that right now everything takes the same color. What we would like to do is, for each app, I would like to figure out whether to highlight that or not highlight that. Ideally, this highlighting will only happen for the most downloaded app, but we may want to in future change the logic and highlight the top 3 apps or something like that. So for this, we would need to have some sort of a table like that internally that tells me for each app what is the color grouping. So right now Sugar Rush has 1 on it and everything else has 0 on it. It simply means Sugar Rush should be in 1 color, everything else will be in the 0 color. So how do we generate this? For this I have created a measure called color group. Let me show this to you. It's basically like this. If total downloads is less than most downloads, 0, else 1. So that's pretty much it. When you apply this in the context of an app, you can see here, for this app, the total downloads will be whatever is the number of downloads that it had. Whereas most downloads would be the downloads for Sugar Rush, because that's the most downloaded one. So you're comparing this with that, and then you're basically deciding 0 or 1. That's simple if condition. I can just add those 2 measures here, and then you will understand how this works. So let's add total downloads and most downloads. So here we can see that total downloads is individually whatever the number is, whereas most downloads is always 53,428 because that's the most downloaded value. So that's how that works, and this if condition then comes back as 0 or 1. So now that we know what the color grouping for each app is, we can go back here and we can select this chart, go to the columns area, and again you can see that in the color there is an FX button. So we could use the FX button to conditionally determine the color. So we can say the color should be blue for this, red for that, like that. So I'm going to select this, and I'm going to base this on the rules. The rule should be on the color group measure that I have generated, which will evaluate to be 0 or 1 for each app. So here we're going to say if this is equal to 0 as a number, this is important. If you don't set this to number and leave it to percentage, you're going to get garbage results. Then it should be in a dull color like that. If this is equal to 1 as a number, then it should be a strong color like the blue color. Click OK and boom, our most downloaded app is in the blue color, everything else is in a different color. Already our storytelling is on point, all of the things are ready. We just need to tidy up the chart. Now when it comes to Power BI, the default charts, it does add a lot of garbage and bells and whistles, I feel. For example, it adds these unnecessary axis titles. You can see that they don't really contribute anything to the story. On top, by default, it adds an axis and puts the grid lines. Whereas many times from a storytelling perspective, you may want to try other things. So for example, you may want to take out these things and add data labels directly up top. Also, you may want to tidy up the overall presentation itself and maybe add a border and some shading effects. So we are going to do those things now. This is really simple compared to rest of the DAX stuff that we have done. Select the visual and then go into the Y-axis option. I'm going to turn off values and title as well. Y-axis is gone. We'll go to X-axis, turn off the title. Now that that extra word app goes away. And already our chart is looking much better. We'll select this chart and go into data labels and enable that. The data labels come up nicely up top. Finally, we'll go into size and style options here and let's add some styling around the chart. So we'll begin by adjusting the padding. The padding will be 5 pixels on all the bottom 3 sides except the top. I'm just going to make it 10 pixels all around so that there is some bit of white space around the chart. Next, we'll select the visual border, enable that, and let's select something dull like that, and let's adjust to 10 pixels. We'll do the same for background, set it to dull color like that. We may have to adjust the column colors depending on the background to bring in some contrast. So I'm going to go into columns, adjust my conditional formatting and make it a little bit darker so that it works well against the dull background that we have set there. Finally, I'm going to enable shadow effect and customize this shadow by using custom option and set it to 90 degrees. So the shadow is cast to the bottom and size is 0. Blur, let's blur it to 30 pixels and distance, let's distance it by 15 pixels and let's make it 80% transparent so that the shadow effect is there, but it's not too strong. There is our chart. It already looks really beautiful. It just needs a cherry on top, which is an icon to represent what is going on here. As we are talking about games, let's bring an icon of a game. You can go into an application like PowerPoint and use the insert icons and search for something like game or downloads and insert an icon. So right now I have inserted this icon. By default, they come in black color, but you can change the color here to anything. As our chart is already in blue color, I thought a blue color icon would be good. Once you have the icon here, right click on it and use the save as picture option to save this icon as an image on your computer. You can save it as a PNG file or any other file. I suggest saving it as a PNG. So I've already saved it. Let's go ahead and bring that here. Let's go to insert and click on image and point to the game icon that you have saved. Click OK. It'll come up looking really big and ugly. Let's size this and place it in the corner like that. There is our chart. It looks knockout and it tells amazing story. And the best thing is all of this is dynamic. If your data changes, you just refresh and everything auto-populates. And if you have a slicer, so for example, let's add a slicer here on our date. I can adjust the window to something like this and I can see what is the most leading app and how many downloads it has. There is one extra thing that I would do when I'm making charts like this is to adjust the font choices that are made for the title and subtitle. I've done all of that here. You can see that, for example, I have used a different font and different styling, and also background color is slightly different here because the page has a background. So there you go. How do you like this ultimate column chart? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this so far, give it a like and share it with your friends. I'll catch you again somewhere else. Bye.